It's my great joy today to welcome Lynsi Snyder-Ellingson, the owner and president of InNOut Burger, as our guest on Conversing. I can hardly think of ever having had a guest for whom more people's taste buds will be immediately awakened in the longing for more In-N-Out food. It's just such a prompt for so many people, and it's just a great honor to have you, Lynsi. So thank you for joining Conversing today.
Oh, thank you.
You know, one of the things that must be part of your life from the time you were a little girl and realizing that this amazing food that was being turned out by your family was food that was feeding people who were not just its fans, but in some ways it's more than fans, enthusiasts. And I just wonder, just tell us a little bit about that story of just coming to realize how much people loved In-N-Out.
Well, it really was more in my adult life that I realized it, because I lived in Northern California for years and was kind of away from the hype and most of our locations. So, just it was after my father died, really coming back and just realizing, how how iconic and special In-N-Out is for so many people. So
yeah, it's quite amazing. I have friends from so many other parts of the country who've never lived in California, but have this legendary appetite and memory of the last time they were in California and eating In-N-Out food. So it's well, I wanted to today really take advantage of the chance to just hear a little bit more about your story, but in particular, really about your story in its way of developing this philanthropy that has been so significant, both through the two foundations that are part of In-N-Out itself, as well as through the foundation that you and your husband have actually formed. So could we turn there at first and have just some conversation about that? And then I want to come back to In-N-Out as well.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about the work, especially of the Army of Love. This is the one that is yours and Sean's, your husband's foundation, as I understand it. And I'm wondering if you can just tell us about what gave it birth, how it's unfolded, what your passion for it is, and why it is what it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually, anyone that's heard my story knows that I've been married and divorced a few times. And that was a rough part of my life, just dealing with those failures and dealing with, making some decisions without the Lord, and then dealing with the consequences. And it was in my last failed marriage that I was just really feeling hopeless, because, my life purpose wasn't to be married and happily married and just, live the American dream. That's not my life purpose and my goal at all. It's to be used by God, to bring glory to God, and to win souls for his kingdom, and so I was just crying out. I was separated at the time and just asking him for hope and, saying, I don't want to be dealing with this, the same, just, it's like every week, just feeling like, this marriage is failing. I'm struggling, I'm hurting, and I want to be used for God, but felt like, I couldn't get out of just this cycle, and trying to focus on marriage and heal the marriage. And,
right.
Finally I was actually in New Orleans, on a bus. And I was there for the Super Bowl. But I was touring and I was going around the city, and I just looked out the window and God just wrecked my heart. And I felt like, okay, I want to help heal the brokenhearted. I want to set the captives free. And I just heard so many scriptures just come to life in my heart, and I was just crying. And then he basically gave me the vision for Army of Love, that, you will be able to be a part of that. And
right.
Gave me hope again, to know that, there would be a ministry to do those things. And, what Army of Love would look like is, to be online, have a hub where people can come, Christians can come on there and be trained and equipped for the work of ministry to really, maybe they've been in ministry, but to be discipled further or to seek some healing. Maybe they speak Christianese, but they need healing in their own hearts to be able to help others. And so to be able to go there and be thoroughly equipped, and then also for others to reach out to get help, to say, I need more than just someone to pray for me. Like I need help, and I need someone to go into the trench with me and be willing to get dirty and deal with these things. So, yeah.
Well, it's a very moving story to me because, I really have always honored your candor and your willingness to let people in on what you've gone through, and the honesty of your story, and trying to get to a place where the clarity of your life is restored, and where your sense of the hope and assurance of God's mercy and his ability to work in and through you is really strengthened. And I think that it's so interesting to me that this manifestation of really wanting to make a difference for God was something that was so clear to you. And I always, though I don't know everything about your story by any means, but I have gotten the impression that some of that was planted pretty early in your life through your family. Can you say a little bit more about that, and how that trajectory then perhaps contributed to the feeling of how this should unfold?
Yeah, I think that, it's interesting. I just found this journal the other day, and I read something that I'd kind of forgotten about, but there was basically this feeling that I would get when I was younger. And the only way I could describe it is that there was like this spoon that I had this spoon, and it was holding this ginormous weight, and like more weight that could fit, it could fit on that spoon. And I remember feeling that sometimes when I was with my family, and, I had my mom, I had my dad, we had the things we needed. And it was just like, there's something else, it was like I was holding this weight, but then there was something missing in my life. And I knew, looking back, that it was just glorifying God, like, great if you have all these things, but for what,
Right.
So I'm very much a truth teller, have a little more on the prophetic side of ministry. And, you get rejected a lot, but I think that I look at the big picture, and a lot of my life, I'm big picture focused. And so I guess I've just looked at, okay, a lot of my family passed away fairly young. And of course I asked God why, and all I know is there's a sense of urgency. And for me, just knowing that I must be about my Father's business, I have to be not only about, the business that God's entrusted me with here, but really about his kingdom, and how does that play out. And I think the platform of love is huge, because the goal is to love. So to love God and love others. So I think that it's just been, the call has been something I've been aware of most of my life, but knowing the Lord early and having lots of different things happen, I've kind of been on the path, off the path, back on the path.
Yes. Yeah. Well, one of the things I've been involved in starting a couple of nonprofits, and one of the things that has been so interesting to me about it has been that you have an original vision, you have an idea of how you hope it's going to unfold, but then you have lots of surprises that come along, because you just really don't know how God's going to guide it, and what doors might open in unexpected ways. Has that been true for you?
Yeah.
What are some examples of that?
Well, I mean, I think the Army of Love, I know I wanted to have everything up and running and functioning and this and that, year one.
Yes. Why not?
That didn't happen, it's taken longer to, get a lot of the we have all the modules loaded up. We have all the training stuff. All of that's there, and we have different soldiers in the Army of Love that are a part of it. But just I think the time frame is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But God's doing something regardless of the time frame that we think it might be, should be on.
Right.
But it's been wonderful, and I think that we have our plan and all that, but then he can kind of direct your steps differently than you originally thought.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Lynsi, you just mentioned that there's critical resources that you want people to experience and that you've developed into various tools for ministry training. Tell us about those.
So we have 7 modules, and ironically, the original training and ministry tools and even ministry tool workbook that we drew a lot of the material from was he was a Fuller graduate.
Interesting. Yeah. Tell us about those kinds of resources. How have they affected you, and what has made them important?
Yeah, it's a lot of what I've been talking about is just really focusing on God's kingdom and what are the things in God's kingdom that we look at. His word, the Holy Spirit, just how we keep our spirits fed, and then going back to your own personal healing. I give this analogy that our bodies are this vessel to contain God's love, to hold God's love, like as if it's a glass.
Right.
So if we have all of these other things inside of that glass, that's wasted real estate for God's love. That's a place that his love wants to fill. But it's not just laid at the cross, I'll pray for you, and it just goes away. I mean, there are those miracle situations where someone's just healed. But I think that, Jesus touches on the matters of the heart when he's in the boat with Peter. Peter denied him 3 times. Imagine the guilt and the shame he had. But he asked him 3 times a question, which to me triggers that he did that 3 times to basically say, I'm going there, I'm confronting what happened. He went straight to that matter, but he asked him a question that probably healed him from any of the guilt or shame, and just wrapped that up and dealt with it, So I think that the matters of the heart are so important when you're talking about God's love. So we have to get our own hearts cleaned out and able to hold his love so that we can pour it out on others without other things maybe spilling out on them too.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
one of the things that we're just starting at Fuller is an effort around emotionally healthy leaders, because so many times it's the emotional health of leaders themselves that sort of spill out into some of the pain that people in ministry can actually cause, not just receive. And it does involve the significance of personal healing and issues of our own ongoing renewal and the Spirit's work. Yeah. So the different tools, there's a lot, but we have, we focus on spiritual warfare as well. So, but yeah, I think the freedom in dealing with things is really what makes a difference, because, there's Christians I know that have been believers for a long time, and it's not until they deal with some of the things going on that they really experience that freedom and that true transformation. So I want that for everyone. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I do think, in that sense, you're a great example of a, quote, adult convert, in the sense of somebody who comes freshly to even something that they knew before, but they come freshly to it. And then it just expands our hearts and minds in such an extraordinary way that we're eager for other people to know it. And that seems like it's pretty central to your story, which is great. I read a couple of interviews in which it was clear that your sense of kind of the nature of spiritual battle is real, and the feeling that we're really in a world of genuine spiritual warfare, and a sense of not just doing battle against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities. And I assume that was partly why you chose the language of army of love, because it felt like there's really actually real power and work that needs to be done. Am I reading it right?
Yes, 100%. And I do, you can be a warrior or a warrior. And I feel like I've chosen to be a warrior and not let fear reign in my life. And I think that fear is one of the biggest weapons that the enemy uses against us. And not only does he use it against us, but we end up using it against ourselves.
Yes.
And I do feel, discerning of spirits is one of my gifts. And so, I've had a lot of demonic attack since I was probably 4 years old, I can remember. So I used to be more of a victim of fear. And then finally I chose and realized that we don't have to be, and that he does give us the power to overcome and to, be victorious in those battles where the enemy's trying to, take charge or try to fool us and make us think that we don't have any power. And
right.
Whether it be dreams where there would be demonic forces and I couldn't talk, felt like I couldn't move, and the theme in most of those dreams was that I didn't have the power. He was trying to instill doubt or fear in me, so I think that because of those things happening to me, I have a really strong drive to set other people free and show them that a lot of times when they're being attacked in those ways, it's because the enemy knows what their gifts are and he's trying to throw a blanket over them, cover them.
Yeah. Well, I do think it's a really, really provocative thing to say that, because it underscores that love itself is not neutral in any space, right? If you're actually going to be loving, you're going to put yourself into a position of vulnerability, of risk, of, in a way, surrendering control by actually just truly loving somebody. And that elevates the risk factor, which then can also elevate the fear factor. And yet it is also the case that it's where the best of God's grace often shows up, is in those places where we choose to take risks. Yeah. I'm really struck by, especially right now, it just seems like our nation, but a lot of places around the world, are gripped by elements of fear. It's one of the most pervasive factors, I think, that's shaping our nation, and for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes they make sense to me, sometimes they really don't make sense to me. But this sense of what it means to walk in faith and not in fear is not a denial that fear can be legitimate at times, but an acknowledgement that it shouldn't have control.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of, we do things, we make decisions based on a lot of things that we've been through, different wounds in our life or things that we've done. And I really see this as a giant wound for so many people, what's going through. And so then people form strongholds, fear being one of the biggest ones. People form these strongholds and start functioning out of those strongholds rather than where God would have us.
Right. Yeah. I'm Fuller is an institution that has 120 denominations and 80 or 90 countries in its student body. So it means that we have a sense of what's happening in the world is what's happening at Fuller in some way, whatever app means these days, since it's not geographic anymore. And it does put us in touch, I think, with a sense of what's going on in lots of places. And there's all kinds of places around the world where the defeat of fear is actually the central work of the gospel over and over and over again, of how do people get free of all kinds of things.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was wondering if you could reflect on a little bit is the connection between all of that, and InNOut, because as a consumer of InNOut, let me say, let me just give you some observations which are not new to me or unique to me at all. But when I go into an InNOut, and I go into it with a smile always. I go into it with a sense of great gratitude that I get to be there, that I'm looking forward to the outcome, it feels like a place of clarity, that it's a place of all the kind of basic things about any food place, but that it's clean, that it's well organized, that it's reliable, that what I go in for is what I will actually get. All those kinds of really, really, really important baselines. Then I also have to say there's something very special about the people that you seem to hire, or about the culture that's been created for those people, or probably both, which then further extends this. So it's not just kind of like a system. It's something actually, in the end, quite personal. It feels like you're actually having some, it's obviously brief, but you're having some real encounter with a real person who's going to be able to actually, it seems, in the language we're talking about right now, be free to actually be themselves. They don't feel like they're automatons. They feel like they're really themselves, and they feel like they really are there in a culture that allows them to be free. Yes, they have to do reliable work, and they have to do it in a certain way and all that, but it still feels like it's integrated in a way that creates an environment that causes people not just to want the food, but to want the environment of the food as well. Do you want to comment on all of that as it relates to what we were just saying about just the need for human freedom?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my family, they've all had their part in, setting that up, I guess. I have wanted to continue the legacy that they started, and not change anything at its core, but just make things better where I can. And I think the family that we started out as, very small, few people, and how close they were, and that they were over at my grandma and grandpa's for dinner, and just the personal part,
Right.
So it's a little harder with close to 30,000 associates, but I'm not able to have all the new hires and people over at my house for dinner, but there's just that piece of love, I guess, for me, where I feel like I'm hoping that they can feel God's love through me, hoping that they can feel cared for, hoping that they feel, that it is a place where they can be themselves. And if they need help with something, that there's someone that they can go to, that they have, just a safe place to share something. They know the things that we fight for through our foundations. So there's things that they could speak up about. So really, I want to, one, maintain, the cleanliness, the quality, the operations piece that my family started. But my call, of course, tying into loving the people and doing whatever I can to make them feel that and feel appreciated. I think that all of that together just kind of comes out when you go there. And we have amazing people. We have amazing people, and we have a lot of people that have really latched on to the vision and servant leadership. And it feels good to have so many people bought in and going the same direction.
Right. How has the COVID season affected all that? What have you tried to do in this particular time to address some of the challenges that must cause in the system?
Yeah, well, I don't like to, toot my own horn or whatever, say that, but I think we've done some things financially as far as sick pay and all that we've tried, but you can't make everyone happy. We've tried to do a lot there. We've definitely learned that you can't communicate enough during seasons of chaos and just a pandemic. The more you talk to them about what's going on, the better. So there's some things I wish that we would have done more of, but I think overall our team has been just hands down on top of so much and really done a wonderful job in just trying to make people feel safe, trying to stay on top of all the, whether it's the restrictions, the requirements. I mean, it felt like you were jumping right, left. What do we do?
Right.
But we have our communications that go out every period on our burger television for everyone to watch. But, I think the personal interaction as far as, not having our store meetings, not having a lot of our events, it's really taken a toll. It hurts because one of the things that's made us so strong is being that InNOut family, being close and being able to connect and meet. So that's definitely been hard, but I think it's made us all appreciate those pieces of the company that much more. So we're so looking forward to having some events this year and, having more of the personal connection piece back. So but it's been tough for sure.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, all I know is that in the Pasadena area, whenever I'm driving by an InNOut, it certainly has seemed during the last year like there's still super long lines at InNOut Burger. So there's certainly a sense that you've been an ongoing place of enjoyment and pleasure and good food. So that's been fun and wonderful to see. Do you, as InNOut has committed to being a privately owned company, and you've expanded fairly considerably the number of states that you're now in, and is that something that you're anticipating is just going to continue unfolding as it is now? Or I'm not asking for secrets of the corporation, but I'm sure people are just curious. How do you see the horizon of InNOut?
Well, growth is healthy, so we'll continue to grow, of course, but I don't, people ask me, what about the East Coast? What do I hear? And I don't see us so much on the East Coast, and I don't have some giant 5-year plan to expand to, a bunch of different states, but there's definitely some other states on the horizon. We're in Colorado now, we're in Oregon, and there's some natural borders there that we could cross. So
yes. Yeah. Well, I was just curious. It's the reason that I think we're interested in that is really just because of the delight of it all, right? It feels like it would be a delight to have it come as opposed to, I don't know, just another business opening another entity. It's InNOut has a way of spawning joy for people in a way that's, I think, pretty significant. So I just was curious. Tell me about this well-known fact that part of the culture that you've created, especially as I think it emerged through your uncle, the placing of various biblical texts on some of the paper goods, and then I think you've expanded that a little bit more. Just tell us about that part of the culture of InNOut.
Yeah. So we call it the culture of yes, with the customer service piece. And I think that my uncle was very adamant about empowering our people to take care of the customer, to do whatever you can to take care of them, to let them know that they're number one, that we don't say no, that we find a way to say yes and to make them feel that they're our guest. And so we put a lot into that. There's a lot of training involved. We focus a lot on just the videos that they watch, the training videos that they watch before they even go into the dining area to take care of the customers. And there's a lot.
I bet.
But I know that we continue to just appreciate the customer and share that they really are the ones that sign our paychecks. They're the ones that keep us going. So there's just a lot of appreciation and gratitude that we have, and we continue to share with each other. And that's part of that culture of yes, there. I think the customer service and the appreciation for the customer, but the part with the, I guess, building more of the love within the team. I have brought a lot of attention to that over the last, probably 7 years. So that is something that I'm really excited about, because I do feel like there's just a lot more of that servant leadership. There's more of people looking to lift others up and find ways to handle things a little differently than they might have in the past. And I'm just super proud of our people, because we have exceptional leaders, and there's so many people that want to be better. There's so many people that are willing to grow and remain teachable. And that's how I am. Like, I want to always be better. And I think that we've been on this quest together to improve and to just be even better for our people.
Right. So as a private company, you're free, for example, to do things that are distinctly out of your own sense of personal values, right? And that includes things like the biblical texts on the paper goods. Tell people a little bit about that and how that fits into the culture as you see it.
It's not something that I've planned. It's just, when we have something like the hot chocolate that we brought back, that was another product, that was another paper good that we had to create. And the question comes up, what scripture do we put on it? You know? And then, there's been a few other things like that. And then of course I went back and put a scripture on the fry boat, on the bottom of the fry boat. So, it wasn't like, oh, let's just go in and add them to everything. It was just as things came up, oh, we should probably put a scripture on there.
Right. Do you choose them, or who chooses the text? I think your uncle, was it, that first chose the text?
Yeah, he first chose them. It was only a couple years, I think, before he passed away.
I see.
He'd really was born again and had that conviction that he just wanted to do that. He said, this is a private company. It's it was his own belief. And as a, family company, that was a way for him to express his faith.
Yeah.
So just a continuation of that, I guess.
Right. Well, I think it's an interesting, and everybody notices it, whether they're Christians or whether they're not. And I think I've been in a lot of settings where people, where it comes up, people will say, oh yeah, that's the place that, especially if they're not from California or the West Coast. Oh yeah, that's the place that also has Bible verses on their paper goods. I said, and especially when I've been with non-believers, and I've said, yeah, what do you think of that? And they've said the varied things that you could imagine them saying. But fundamentally, what they've said is, well, I think it's really great, because though I may or may not share their faith, it's really a good thing that they're trying to be honest about their own story and letting it be part of the integrity of the company that they're actually building. I thought, well, that's really a great little summary of how it lands, at least for some people. When I look at what I know of your life from the outside, it's felt like there's been huge challenges, all kinds of things that life has dealt you, and all kinds of things that you had no control over, especially the passing of such important relatives and founders of the company and developers of the company, but also just your own personal losses and your own battles that you've been willing to share with the public. And there's just a lot of courage. So I guess I'd like to just, have you talk a little bit about courage. I mean, from what we were saying earlier about spiritual warfare, a lot of it comes out of a sense of just the Spirit of God equipping and enabling you to find the strength to stand inside and against various forces and challenges and issues. But just give us some insight into how courage has developed for you.
Yeah. I think that there's definitely a lot of a lot of glory to God over that, because, I was very shy when I was little. And I was, I think, just, I don't know, more afraid of different things, and then I guess I reached this place with the Lord where I felt like, if he's for us, who can be against us, So that means he knows the day I'm going to die. He knows, how, he knows all of that. And he's either, in control, and I'm going to submit my life to him, or it's chaos without him. And so I guess I just trust him so much. And if I have to die for him, that's just part of counting the cost. And so I think I've just really embraced that, you either live with the freedom that he gives you, or you live in some sort of bondage and you miss out. Mm-hmm. And I've just wanted to have a healed heart. So everything that I've gone through, I've really sought that healing to be free. Mm-hmm. And it says, that we can be free. It says that the truth shall set you free. It says that, if you confess your trespasses to one another, that the prayers of a righteous man avails much. Like, you'll be healed. There will be healing for you. And so I just, I take those scriptures for what they're worth. I take those, right. And I guess through that, I've realized that there's joy. There's just so much joy, living more fearless than with fear.
Yes.
And trusting him.
Right.
So it gives you life. Like, you just
yes.
have so much more life. And, I've heard someone say, "Oh, you have such a wonderful lust for life." I'm like, no. It's not a lust for life. I feel like I have so much life and just appreciation for it, because I've known death. I've had so much death around me. Mm-hmm. So I make the most of moments, and I not only do I appreciate, the practical things, the, taking photos to capture memories, all of that, but just knowing that, any day could be our last. So we should live it, right. And try to bring glory to him however we can.
Right. Was it you who came up with the name of one of the InNOut Foundation names, Slave to Nothing? Was that your language?
Yeah.
Because it feels, it felt to me like it had to be, because of what I had read about your story and about some of the views that you've had, and what you've just expressed is just a classic example of that, right? Of not wanting to be a slave to anything except to Jesus Christ himself. Yeah, it's quite amazing. I know that, I've had quite a lot of contact with human trafficking organizations, and particularly with International Justice Mission, but many other organizations as well. And one of the things that has been the most moving to me has been the courage of people coming out of human trafficking, and their ability, by God's grace, often, very, very specifically and clearly, to find a whole new reservoir of life that had more or less just been taken from them. And a lot of Fuller's work with at-risk children has been the same kind of evidence of just helping people find in Christ and in themselves this reservoir of life that they can feel is not there at times, but they can actually rediscover it or discover it for the first time. It's an amazing story.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's definitely hope for everyone. And right. I think that is the point to what you're saying, is that
right.
no matter how bleak, how desperate or awful a situation can be, God always has a way.
Right. Always has a way. Yeah. I think coming back to the theme of fear, one of the things that fear does, obviously, is that it strips away the vitality of what we're just been talking about. And when it can be restored, it literally is the restoration of life. And I just want to say that from where I sit, you're a great example of a person whose honest story of pain and loss and suffering and challenges has really been a story of God's redemption. And I think you do bring God glory by the way that you're trying to both tell that story in an appropriate context or ways, and also letting it manifest in the commitments that you're doing through your company, but also through the foundations that you're doing. And to me, it feels like this apparently has been a year. This past year has been a year of a burgeoning of new nonprofits, and I've thought, that makes great sense actually, because it's an effort to make a constructive pathway toward hope for somebody, and it feels like that's what you're trying to do, and your company's about that, and your foundations are about that. So, Lynsi, I just want to thank you very, very much for being with us today and for the faithfulness of your work right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, great to be with you.